I am sitting in the house of a few old Russians. The people are very kind to us. A table, just cleaned by the old woman, stands next to a warm stove. There are no bugs here. There's too much water for them. Our company is stationed in Posyolok, Old Posyolok to be precise, which, along with Wirisa, forms a large forest settlement. There are brickworks nearby and there is a minefield there. Yesterday, when I was driving here with my platoon to reinforce the riflemen, I got out of the tank when we crossed a ford, and that was when I spotted the mines. Hiller has just arrived with the rest of the company, and one of his vehicles hit a mine on the left side of the road, just at the spot where I had marshalled my platoon past the threat. There was only track and roller damage, and one man was slightly shocked. Yesterday's story continued thus. We drove from Siverskaya to Wirisa over completely muddy roads. When we arrived there, my platoon was ordered into the village to assist the riflemen who had taken a number of prisoners there. There had been no serious resistance. I reported my arrival to the leader of the rifle company, Oberleutnant Montabon, an arrogant, stupidly insolent churl. He is a similar type to Glasgen, but much worse than him. He told me that I was now subordinated to him and ordered me to split my platoon up and send the individual vehicles to different locations. When I told him that I would not do that, he outright told me that I should go back to where I came from. That, however, hurt my pride. After all, Oberst Zollenkopf had made a related remark when he claimed that I was too tentative in leading my tanks. Well then, all right. In that case, I will deploy the tanks individually, and if something happens, I will have the best proof that my tactics are right. I placed my own tank in a particularly threatened spot and stood guard from 11:45 p.m. to 5 a.m. after having slept, not very comfortably, for about 4 hours in the tank. At about 4 a.m. it became light, and when visibility had improved, I made myself 2 sandwiches with honey, which I then consumed in silence, thinking about celebrating my next birthday. I hope I'm not still in the army then. I then moved into a little hut where I slept for a while in a deck chair next to a fire. But now I am already tired again, and am trying hard to keep myself awake by writing. I have just talked to the old people here. I can now more or less understand every word with a bit of gesturing with hands and feet and the occasional use of a pencil. There was even a bit of praise from the old woman. I am quite proud. Her brother-in-law had been a general in old Russia. Her husband used to work as a carpenter in a factory in Leningrad. Since 1922, they have been living in this house where, quite recently, before our arrival, Red Army soldiers had been quartered. He just showed me his silver pocket watch, which is now lying on the table. Swiss-made 16 jewels, runs without making a sound. Right now, the woman is peeling a few potatoes for us. She had already offered me some of those in the morning, but then we had still been expecting a food delivery via the field kitchen. However, their heavy lorries got stuck on the bad roads. The baggage train is still in Svyazk. By the way, the carpenter there, after losing his house, has moved into the one next to it. The old people have a mirror here in the house, and looking into it, I can't help but notice how much hair I have lost during this campaign. How did that happen? At 25 years old, I can't say I am particularly happy about it. I have to admit, now that I am in Russia, they do have some really pretty girls. One of the refugee girls, who, after staying in the village here for several days, came out of the bathhouse this morning, is just my type. She is not Russian, more of the Finnish-Estonian type, which is common here in the region of Leningrad. I wonder if there will be time to eat the potatoes, which the old woman is kindly and voluntarily preparing. What will they have in store for us today? Who knows? It will probably turn out to be one of those after-dinner surprises again. Surprise, surprise. As expected, we are to drive back to Nikolskoye. The job has been done here. We were just in the process of eating the potatoes. Vitkotter had fetched a tin of fish from the tank when Engelhardt brought the news from Hiller. Now it is getting dark again, and we'll have to cross that deep ford. That sounds really great. We are just rolling through the village of Staraja Posyolok, and I have to say that the people here are very clean and not too fond of the Bolsheviks. They have welcomed us with bunches of flowers, and everywhere people are waving as we roll past. The populace astonishes me. Something that doesn't happen every day. 10 prisoners are standing at the roadside and want to hitch a ride. We gave each of them a slice of army bread and then loaded them onto the Panzer IV. The hungry locals are standing nearby and are also asking for bread, so we get a few loaves from the leading tank and quickly distribute them. By the way, we have taken many more prisoners today. We are standing on the road between Wiriza and Kurowiza. Not a soul knows why we have been standing here so long. We were supposed to reach Wyra, which lies on the main road, last night already. But first we had to pull our vehicles across the Wiriza ford. Wünsche and his platoon had been designated for that job. On the path leading to the ford, there were mines which had been cleared and placed by the side by the pioneers of the 8th Panzer Division, but which hadn't been defused and weren't even marked with barrier tape. In total, there were 14 of them piled up there. And when Jorgens's tank rolled towards the ford, it hit a picket fence, which fell over right onto one of those mines. It exploded immediately and ignited the other 13 mines. The effect doesn't need to be described. Obergefreiter Beerhorst, one of the old men of our company, with 42 attacks under his belt, was killed. And that, to protect the sensitive nerves of possible future readers, is putting it mildly. Jorgens, the driver, suffered a concussion of the brain and related other injuries from the blast. Unteroffizier Stefan, the commander of the tank, and his radio operator Zurhausen, who both had been walking a bit in front of the tank, were lucky and remained unscathed. Of course, it's the pioneers who are to blame for this. They have negligently violated their duties, and a lot more could have happened. Then, just as the first of our vehicles rolled past the brickworks, another mine went off down at the ford, and all that happened only because of the pioneers. Wilhelm Lope addressed a few of them who had taken part in clearing the mines at the ford and asked why they had only dug them out without defusing them too. Our orders were to clear a path. No one ordered us to defuse anything. Yes, understood, just like us, when we point our weapons at the Russians in close combat situations, and then don't pull the trigger because no one has ordered us to do so. We loaded the body of Beerhorst onto our tank. The poor boy had been terribly torn up, so we had to wrap him tightly in a tent square before we could do so. The detonation had killed him instantly. Near a barn, on the grounds of the collective where we spent the night, there were a few trees. We dug his grave below them and decorated it nicely. Just as we did for the graves of so many other comrades, we made a cross from birchwood and placed it on the grave. In the meantime, some comrades had brought potted flowers from one of the nearby cottages. Those were also placed on the grave. After a silent tribute, we walked back to our vehicles and to the tasks that still lay ahead of us. From today, we have been assigned to Gruppe Limbrun, but for now we are still in Staraya with the baggage, where our vehicles are undergoing some much-needed maintenance. What will become of us, I don't know yet. It seems we'll be forming the vanguard again. Our company is billeted in a huge building, a former workers' convalescent home. We are now in the region of the forest belt around Leningrad. Yesterday, the old man said that if we went a bit further north, there would be wide open terrain. Siverskaya, just like Wierza, is surrounded by woodland. There must be an airfield in the distance, or some industrial site with a lot of large hangar-like structures. I have never seen so many railway lines before in Russia. Since the beginning of the campaign, from the very first day, we are now in the first village and in the first house with electric lighting, and not only that, it is still working. And they even have running water in the house. However, the wash basin is blocked. Outside, there is a deep Russian trench, and in that trench, there is a thunderbox designed in a way that makes it impossible to use quickly. The reason for that is it is unavoidable to spend at least 10 minutes laughing before business can commence. The beam has been fastened to the sides of the trench and has been furnished with a backrest, but it is clear that the designers didn't care much for the practicality of it all. Anyone trying to relieve himself on the contraption looks a bit like a monkey sitting on a sharpening wheel. And just to make sure that the cactuses who perform on it are protected against the rain, some clever person has decided to install 2 glasshouse roof panels above it. That way, anyone sitting there while the bombs are splintering is guaranteed to get an additional hail of glass splinters in his face. Another peculiar thing here is the wide use of hammocks, which can be found in every house. Also, the women do not walk barefoot or with wooden or bast fibre shoes anymore. Here they often wear leather shoes with high heels and thin socks. Both men and women, however, wear the quilted standard jackets of the kind the Red Army soldiers are wearing too. Nearly every worker wears a thick wool pullover, a torn pair of trousers and a flat cap. And with their mouths filled with cigarettes rolled with newspaper or sunflower seeds, they are now standing around without employment. All the large factories around Leningrad have stopped working, giving the locals time to talk to the German soldiers, marvel at the weapons, and listen to them talk about a different Europe and German socialism. They are genuinely interested, asking about German working hours, wages, whether we can buy everything and at what prices, and the living conditions of the workers. The kolkhoz farmers want to know how much livestock and land our farmers own. Such questions come up again and again, and we notice the great joy with which they welcome us here, especially the older people who remember life in old Russia and those who have been prisoners of war in Germany. Hiller was with the Oberst yesterday. Now he has also received his assault badge. There is also news about our new task. Today we'll stay here and concentrate on servicing the vehicles. Tomorrow we drive to Pesa II, which has been restructured and is now under the command of Knight's Cross holder Hauptmann Stern. Together with them, we are going to be subordinated to the 36th Infantry Division, which is launching the attack on Leningrad, along with the 6th Panzer Division. The 1st and 8th Panzer Divisions are being pulled out of the line and will form the Army Reserve. That means that the old 5th Company is not going to the scrapyard to gather rust. Instead, we'll fight the final battle for Leningrad alongside the infantrymen with whom we have already fought at Lake Peipus. I am glad that Glasgen doesn't have the company anymore, and that it is now in the hands of the businesslike and calm Hauptmann Stern who is taking over. I wonder what else we'll experience in the coming days. The fortifications in front of the city are not shabby and have been prepared long beforehand. But then the artillery of the 36th Infantry Division is most excellent. Since we received mail yesterday, my mood has changed. There was a letter from home containing developed photos of the tank battle at Rosyniai and from the first days of the war in the east. The pictures, which my mother sent me, are all very good. The letters from the homeland have entirely blown away my bad mood. Last night I sat down with the boys of the 6th Company for a while. They had set up a radio and played some really good music, serious music from Belgrade. It felt like a festival hour. Simple radio music. As soon as I am back in Hamburg, I can finally go to concerts again. Into the theatre, just like Herbert did when he was on leave there. Just a short while longer, and then I will have an even greater right to enjoy these pleasures. It is said that Hiller received a scolding from Kohl because he missed some appointments, though I have no idea about what exactly. Now then, I want to take a look at what mail has arrived in the makeshift orderly room here. The technical servicing of the vehicles is mostly finished. The men are doing their laundry and cleaning their weapons. Wittkotter had the watch last night and is now lying sleeping on a Russian folding bed, which someone has organized. We have all slept as much as we could last night. It was a real treat. I have now slept a couple of hours more. What else am I supposed to do without trousers? I have given mine to Isha and Metgen, our company artificers, to have them mended. They have set up their shop here. My trousers are slowly falling apart, and new ones are a scarce commodity. Wellner, with his lorry, is in Germany at the military clothing office. We are expecting him back in about 2 or 3 weeks, and I expect that the war here will still be ongoing then. At least I will be getting a new uniform. Due to all the things I have been through on foot over time, I now look scruffier than the tank gunners. And because of the oily main gun, my trousers are constantly dirty too. When Leningrad has fallen, I will wash them in petrol again. The crew has lost my washing bowl and misplaced my coat. It's a disgrace how carelessly my comrades handle my things. I have replaced Wenger with my old radio operator Schweinsberg. I hope that from now on, my tank's radio will work without fault. The brothers of the baggage train always brag loudly about all the fighting they have been in, which I hate like the plague. My men, even the youngest among them, always roar with laughter when they hear such talk from the baggage men. Today, at 6 p.m., there is a roll call. Metgen and Isha, the artificers, have been promoted to Unteroffizier. For bravery in the face of the enemy, Wittkotter, Lauer, Karwilk, Laufermann, Munt, and Kortli have been promoted to Gefreiter. Several of the older men from the baggage train as well. One of them even has the assault badge, but had been kicked out of a combat formation because he was afraid of the enemy. It's funny, I can spot people like this just by looking at their faces. I can tell from their eyes if they are useful in combat or not. A whole bunch of assault badges were awarded, and Unteroffizier Wiesner, the driver of the fuel truck, received the War Merit Cross. In the morning, wake-up call is at 5 a.m., leaving at 6 a.m. Then we drive to Abteilung 2, where we'll have another day of rest, and then we attack Leningrad together with the 36th ID, motorized. It has rained the whole morning. Across Nikolskoye and Bolshoye, we have ended up in a little Finnish village where the Russians resided before us. Steel helmets, machine guns, Molotov cocktails, ammunition, all sorts of stuff is littering the ground. In the past, we would not even have considered entering a Russian cottage, and now we are happy if we can take shelter from the cold rain, and grateful if we can find a warm stove on which to fry our potatoes. Outside, my tank is parked next to a sauna. On the other side of it is Grau's tank. He has set up a tent there. Push, Wittkotter, and my new radio operator Schweinsberg want to sleep in the antechamber of that sauna, the banja, as they call it here. There is plenty of clean straw nearby. I have moved into the bug-free cottage of a Finn. His wife is currently doing laundry, and it is a bit smelly, but still better than outside in the rain. I wish I could see into the future to find out our fate up here at Leningrad. The IC of the division has informed us that the 36th ID and the 6th Panzer Division will attack west past Krasnogvardiansk towards the coast, which means we'll end up somewhere near Peterhof on the Gulf of Finland. And the 1st and 8th Panzer Divisions are indeed being pulled out to form a reserve, for now at least. On our left, the 1st and 58th Infantry Divisions will advance. How long will this whole malarkey here continue? I am expecting there will be a hard winter, just like last year. And it is coming early too. The potato leaves have already frozen. We may as well expect the worst. The only good thing is that I have got the rubber boots. At least my feet won't be wet all the time. Damn, if only this damn rain would stop. Outside, a few men from the reconnaissance platoon are dragging 2 large glass panels through the mud. They have taken them from a greenhouse and are now bringing them to Hiller. He has moved into a house in which the window glass is missing, and the glass panels will now be leaned against the windows from the outside. A few Finnish girls walk past carrying sickles. Why are they not using scythes, at least, when even the threshing machines are not working? But now, at least, I understand why the Bolsheviks chose the sickle as one of their symbols. Sickles are used everywhere and by everyone here. Scythes are rarely seen, and machinery is unknown. Most tractors have been taken away by the Red Army troops, and the last horses were taken by the partisans. Earlier I spoke to one of the farmers here. His name is Hokanen Andrei Philip, and in his passport his nationality is indeed recorded as Finnish. And he told me that whereas all the Russian men in the region had been drafted, the Estonians and Finns were not. Here in front of the house is a very deep well. I have just looked down the shaft, and it seems to be full of ice at the bottom. Enzi can get that out to make ice cream for us. They had tried to do the same in Puljowo, but didn't manage to get the cream and sugar mix to thicken up. Instead, they poured a whole bottle of schnapps and lemon juice into it, and then distributed the vile stuff, Asleman ice cream liquor. Turowski has been placed under 5 days of arrest because he told Enz, who is an Unteroffizier, to shut his face. Poor Hugo. Now that I am sitting here looking out of the window, all the odd characters are walking past. The old fighters of Abteilung 2, who haven't heard a shot fired in anger for 2 months, since Jamkino, and who have spent all the time away at the rear with the baggage train. Yesterday, Wilhelm Lope said that by now, each of us has more attacks under his belt than these guys had in Poland, France and Russia combined. I wonder if Neuling will lose his nerve in the coming engagements. It's only sad that such people, who, with their lack of tactical understanding, have the fate of men like Jochen Mollenberg and Klein Jung on their conscience, can't be dragged in front of a court-martial. There is no way I will stay in the army longer than required. Since Jochen, Gunther, Wilbaum and Klein Jung have been killed, and Theo Langenbruch and Bongard have left us, I have fully withdrawn into the little world of my platoon, and I feel quite well in that environment. Now then, I will arm myself with a map, and then I am heading to Hiller for a platoon leaders' meeting. I wonder what news he will have. This morning I really earned my lunch. I was in charge of the search operation inside the forest here in the sector of the 5th Company. I can only repeat, it's only good that I have my rubber boots. It rained heavily when we walked out, but no one pretended to have painful feet or related ailments. We stomped down the forest path towards the road where the artillery is located, and divided the men into groups, 3 men and 1 NCO in each. The groups found all kinds of propaganda leaflets, which were very well designed. We gathered them all up and burned them once we came back. The men also found several excellently camouflaged wooden bunkers, all abandoned and empty except for a few hand grenades, which we took with us after defusing them. Slowly we are getting used to handling Russian weapons. Here on the outskirts of the village we found piles of gas masks, rifles, steel helmets, machine gun belts and spare barrels. Anyway, we have spent the whole morning rummaging through the wet undergrowth, and now we have to see how we can somehow dry our uniforms again. It was Hauptmann Stern who ordered us to search the forest. During the briefing, he also informed us that our division would be deployed in the Schwerpunkt of the attack on Leningrad and the fortifications west of Krasnogvardiansk. Using thousands of workers, the Russians have built good fortifications there, concrete and wooden bunkers, all well camouflaged, minefields, mine barriers, anti-tank trenches, stake obstacles, barbed wire barricades and other wire entanglements, all that is waiting for us there. I wonder how we will fare. In front of Leningrad, the Russians will surely field a large number of tanks too. No doubt they have managed to save a few hundred. But anyhow, I must not be too negative. When our tanks have broken down, been shot to pieces, and been blown up by mines, well, then we'll have to attack on foot and earn ourselves the infantry assault badge in addition to our panzer badges. Here in the east, one meets the old comrades of Abteilung too again. They have been at the rear through most of the time during which we have been on defensive duties. Walter Leckenbusch and his men, in charge of the 2 radio tanks, Klein, Schmalt, Lorries, Oberfunkmeister Mittelmann, and the 2 recruits, who now have been with us for nearly a year. Spar is also running around here, getting fatter by the hour, and Jupp Heitmann too. With my hair loss, I will soon be as bald as he is. And then there are the old unsympathetic Feldwebel of the staff company and staff, men like Dettenbach, Falk, Lenz, Oberschirmeister Naundorf, and the old Unteroffiziere who joined up with me, like Franz Dilling, Megger. 7th Company is also based here. Yesterday during the briefing I ran into Ulrich and Lieutenant Knust. I slept for a few hours. Outside the weather has cleared up a little, and now and then a bit of blue sky makes a brief appearance between the clouds. Even though the rain has only ceased a short while ago, the road leading through the village has already dried up a little. Fockel, the driver of Hauptmann Fahrer, is standing around there. The stupid twat has gotten stuck again with his car. There are some people who never learn. In a civilian job, one would just fire them, but here in the army, one needs to learn to cope with them. Yes, the army. I have to admit that I did indeed reach a low point recently, probably fostered by the trouble on my birthday, to which I had been looking forward since the campaign started. And I guess that the relentless rainfall and all that sitting around also plays a role. The campaign has to be over soon, one way or another. But for me, there is only one option now: to stick it out until the Endsieg has been achieved. One must not think that the wounded are better off, or, if I had a wound like this, I could at least get out of these uncomfortable, dirty surroundings. I am past all that now. Only today, a few letters from good and much-loved friends in the homeland, a few photos, and the thought of my mother's upcoming birthday have brought me back to my senses. I am not giving up now that the end is already in sight. And what a sight Leningrad is. The thought of the Endsieg, and the knowledge that the people in the homeland are watching and relying on us. All that will now spur us on during the final thrust on the Red Metropolis, on the cradle of the Red Revolution, on Leningrad. I have just had a bath in the Banja, and it was so hot that I nearly collapsed. The whole platoon had to go to the bathhouse to sweat out all the bad flu germs. Looking at how basic the little bathhouse here is, it's not bad at all. It's only good that I was able to pop my head through a broken window now and then to avoid suffocation. After I had poured a few handfuls of water over the red-hot stones, it became really hot in the low-roofed room. I closed my eyes, and soon I really started to sweat. Then I worked myself over with the brushwood twig, so all my pores were opened, and after I was really sweaty, I started soaping myself up. After that, everything was washed off with ice-cold water. That will surely have helped against the flu and colds. Our attack has been postponed by 24 hours. The attack has been postponed by another 24 hours. It is now not taking place tomorrow, on Sunday, but on Monday. This morning, all platoon leaders met with the boss and were issued maps of the terrain we will have to attack across. There is something wrong with my stomach, so I went into the fields to relieve myself before the briefing. It would not have been ideal if I had been forced to do so while the meeting was ongoing. Wonderful to have stomach problems here, and as a free bonus, there is always the chance to catch some bugs, dysentery, a cold, kidney pains, or crabs. The blessings of Russia. I have to pop out again now. I am feeling miserable. Only yesterday evening I was still sitting with the comrades, drinking mulled wine and chatting about the recent fighting. We have time for that now. A Primus stove detonated in Schweinsberg's face. Schweinsberg, our best technician, had started to repair it, and while he was doing so, the burning stove exploded, burning his neck and right ear. Now he is lying in the porch with the medic and is moaning from very painful burns, poor chap. He'll probably be transported to the rear. He can hardly move at the moment. The latest news is that the advance of the far left wing is making good progress. The Revels issue seems to have been sorted out, and now the infantry is rapidly moving into the wedge that we have driven towards Leningrad. In the south and in the centre, it's also working well, but there is something wrong at Yasma. Yasma had already been reported to have been taken by us, yet we are still standing 50 kilometers away from it. Schweinsberg, my radio operator, is feeling a bit better today. He isn't hurting as much as he did yesterday. Maybe he won't have to go to the hospital. Yesterday, several EK2S were awarded in the company. Lieutenant Bongart and Hero Spiekermann received one. In our company, Meyer the medic and Obergefreiter Verdecker, who shot down the Rata with the Russian rifle and is now in the hospital after the mine explosion at the ford, were also awarded. Wilhelm Lope and I then went over to see Spiekermann to congratulate him. He was sitting in the house with Glasgen and Rudi Schöner. I am not too sure what's up with the latter. Could it be the influence of the woman who had herself transferred from Hamburg to see him when he was in the hospital in Magdeburg? Or is he depressed because he was posted to the baggage train in the leadership reserve? They haven't even given him a light platoon that had gone to Knust, the reservist. I have made the start of the Sunday morning as comfortable as possible, slept until 8:30 a.m., then washed my whole upper body properly with lots of water, not like the Finns, who use just 3 drops from the valve outlet next to the door. And now I sit in the tidy room, write and eat a bit of chocolate. Out here it can't get much better. I have been ordered to see the boss. I wonder what it could be about, maybe an invitation to dinner. So much for the dinner invitation. I have been ordered to inform my crews immediately and without delay that they must always salute me, except when in battle. Discipline in my gang has become too lax. Yes, that is the influence of the snappy Abteilung too. And when I step outside, there are Tutas, Oberholtz and Turonsky, the youngest man of the company, mocking me and practicing saluting. 3 in line abreast, one doing the German salute, the second standing at attention, and the third in line saluting me with the traditional hand to the cap. I did have to laugh at the 3 rascals. Nothing new today, so I just went to visit the minister's son to report to him that there is nothing new to report. He probably didn't sleep very well. The face he made wasn't too friendly. When I think about it, he never looks at me. But I'm certainly not reliant on his good mood. In the night, we were woken by the harsh singing of old songs coming from where the staff is billeted. Schmauch, officer of the day, was sent over to ask them to quiet down. When he got there, he found all the staff officers and the Hauptmann sitting there, so he returned without having fulfilled his task. When one is awake at night, one constantly hears the shells howling outside. An aircraft just dropped some bombs here. Now, having drunk coffee, we are back in the parlour, waiting, chatting and writing. Today at 9:30 a.m, the attack on red positions at Salesi started. Since 7 a.m, our flyers had been busy bombing the villages and positions in front of us. At 8 a.m, the artillery barrage began, and at 9:20 a.m, a group of Ju-88s appeared, dived down on the red positions and dropped their blessings. Just when we had climbed from the observation post, two groups of Stukas flew in from two sides. On the north-northwest side of our section of attack, an observation balloon hung in the sky, similar in shape to our barrage balloons. On the horizon, one could see the spires of Krasnogvardsk, and behind it, towards the west, a range of hills. These hills were the objective of our division. At 11 a.m, a group of Ju-88s bombed Krasnogvardsk, and then things happened at great speed. From the hill here at the village, where there is a big children's swing, we could see that the entire horizon was shrouded in clouds. On the heights of Tazy, a locomotive or railway train was trying to escape, but our bombers got there on time. At first, the spires of Krasnogvardsk were well visible, but then they were also covered by thick clouds of smoke and started to burn. A gigantic picture. On the left wing, where our I Abteilung is fighting with the 36th ID, the Nebelwerfer Abteilung is firing several times. The 10.5 and 15 centimeters artillery are firing shell after shell from the barrels, and again the Nebelwerfer fire. Just when we decide to leave, a wave of aircraft flies over and a whole series of new detonation clouds rises up in the distance. One of the bombers returns at low altitude and trailing smoke. Then it suddenly starts burning. Through my binoculars, I can see the flames licking from the fuselage. What a pity. The Russian flak seems to have got this one, possibly even with a gun delivered by us. The Russian 8.8 centimeters guns are firing quite precisely, but our aircraft drone stubbornly onwards and ignore the bellow from below, until they can answer in their own language. The howl when our machines dive down, and then one hears the bursting crashes and sees the detonation clouds, black, white and dirty yellow, rising up on the horizon. The burning aircraft, a Junkers 88, is landing in a field not far away. From atop a tree we can see how the machine is being consumed by the flames. One has to acknowledge the cool-bloodedness of the pilot, who managed to bring his burning kite back until, far away from the Russians, he found a place to land his fatally stricken machine. I just hope the boys got out all right. We get an idea about the meaning of the term rolling operation. Quite a spectacle that we are allowed to witness here. The beautiful landscape here stood sharply divided from the scene in front by a long curtain of fiery smoke, burning villages in between and here and there, but especially when our formations were flying in, our white signal flares signalled, "We are here." Yes, there they are, the comrades of Panzer Abteilung 65. They are already quite far ahead, that we have to admit, but we have to stay calm. When Raus can't advance any further, they will deploy us and Kohl. That can happen very soon. I suppose the weather is going to improve. The smoke from the burning villages is rising vertically into the sky. I hope this rainy period is over now. Hauptmann Stern was standing next to me just now, and told me that, due to the fact that more divisions have been committed, our section of attack has narrowed from 12 to only 4 kilometres. That isn't too bad at all. At 11:30 a.m, a Focke-Wulf dropped a message for the division, which we then passed on via the telephone. According to this, our tanks were only 100 metres in front of Salesi. The artillery had ceased firing, and no traffic could be observed on the road from Krasnogvardsk to Salesi, and on the other side of Leningrad. Evening and no news. More aircraft attacked, the artillery is firing, everywhere smoke is rising into the sky. The white signal flares, however, can only be seen in the far distance now. We will have to spend the night here, and should be joining the attack tomorrow. The division's task is to advance to the second defensive line around Leningrad, and then to break through it, if possible, together with the Russian troops that are flooding back from the first line towards the city. This evening, Enns, with the field kitchen, had been ordered to make goulash and noodles, while we, by platoons, were to prepare the potatoes ourselves. And what did we get to eat? a brown glue in which a few overbaked scraps of meat were hidden. None of the Lancers wanted to eat the stuff. We were mutinous, so I went to the boss and gave him a piece of my mind. The boss, in his customary manner, gets a daily special dish prepared for him, and along with Hauptmannfahrer and selected men from other companies, never goes hungry. But the vast majority of the men run around with empty stomachs and have to rely on a few sandwiches. The guys serving with the field kitchens are living quite well too. They don't have to cook their potatoes in coffee just to save some fat. The boss was much affected when I talked of chicken murder and extra portions. But even though he didn't accept any personal responsibility, he accepted my demand that Enns needs to be punished. He has been relieved of his duty with immediate effect. And I will get him demoted too. After all, he has only been promoted to Unteroffizier because of his role as first chef, and because he is not good for anything else. At 6 p.m, there is a platoon leader's briefing. Unteroffizier Enns has been punished with 3 days detention for not following the order to cook a second meal, and with a further 10 days of close arrest for having withheld a 25-litre canister of cooking fat, prepared to move out at 5:30 a.m. and then marched towards Sabino. We are now in a forest to the north of it. Soon we are supposed to advance on the long defensive line from which we are still being shelled by artillery. We had some bad luck today. Oberstleutnant von Seckendorf was wounded, as was his adjutant. The commander of the I Abteilung of Artillery Regiment 76, a major, has been killed. Oberst Zollenkopf was also wounded, as was the commander of the Kradschützen, Hauptmann Knaust. In addition, a large number of the rank and file were lost. We didn't see much of that, however. Even though the Russians were shelling Sabino, our tanks offered us good protection, as did the houses. But a little bit further to the front, where the staff of the Kradschützen and that of the 114th is, there is wide open ground in full view of the Russians, and there it was a lot more violent. Even here in the forest, there are too many distractions. Just now, a whole group of Henschel Stukas attacked the Russian positions. We can only be happy about this operational deployment of our Luftwaffe, as it takes a lot of work off our shoulders. In forest fighting, it's often hard to tell who is doing the shooting. Are these our shells or theirs? Stukas are howling again now. The Russians aren't giving up easily now that they know there is not much left to fall back upon, being so close to Leningrad. The positions at Sabino were grimly defended. The whole forefield was covered with mines, and 4 Panzer IV and 2 Panzer II are said to have been lost. 2 of the heavy tanks of Abteilung 65 I have seen myself. They were standing nearby. Next to them stood an artillery tractor with an anti-tank gun, or better said lay an artillery tractor, as it had run onto a mine, and the detonation had flipped the heavy vehicle onto its back. In the tanks, 2 men had been killed. Just now, a few Ratters were chasing one of our Focke-Wulf recon birds. It came in very low, right across the treetops, and there, when they were over our lines, the Ratters turned back towards the Russian side. Yesterday, I only once saw some Ratters, a group of 6 of them. Other than that, not a single Russian aircraft made an appearance. Our good Messerschmitts even flew ground attacks with guns and bombs. Looking on the map, we have just noticed that our whole flank is still open. Down at Korpikowo, the Russians are still clinging stubbornly to their anti-tank defences. That's the objective of the SS Polizei Division, and from there the enemy has a field of fire towards Salesi. Wilhelm Lope was here to see me. He thinks that we won't capture these tank obstacles. He thinks it's better just to close the shop here and then simply starve Leningrad out. Even though that would take a bit longer, it would cause us far fewer casualties. We have already lost enough men. I don't know what to think. Better to attack now, smoke the enemy out, and then halt our infantry formations on the line of Krasnoye Selo until the Russians come over with their hands raised. If only we could look into the future. This is the part 4 of the Memoirs of a German Commander. The continuation of this story will be posted soon. I kindly ask you to subscribe to this channel because your support motivates me to create more videos featuring the valuable memories of soldiers that deserve to be heard. When we reach 1,000 subscribers, I will release a special video as a token of appreciation for your support.